Welcome to the Bookshop at the End of the Internet. This podcast is dedicated to helping book lovers discover new authors. Like all the best bookshops, this podcast is filled with all kinds of books and all kinds of authors. So tune in, browse around, find a new author, and discover a new favorite book at the Bookshop at the End of the Internet. I'm Stacey Horan, author, book lover, and host of the Bookshop at the End of the Internet. This is episode number 171. For more information about this or any of our episodes, go to my website, staceyhoran.com. If you enjoy the podcast, leave us a review, like us on social media, and share us with your friends, family, and fellow readers. In today's episode of The Bookshop at the End of the Internet, I'm chatting with author Alexis Hunter about her new memoir, Joi Lansing A Body to Die For. In this book, Alexis recounts her time spent with Joi Lansing, one of the last blonde bombshells of 1950s and 60s Hollywood. Known as the Monroe of television, Joi Lansing was a talented actress, singer, and performer. Alexis was just starting out in Hollywood when she met the famous actress on a movie set. The two became fast friends and were soon inseparable. Alexis's memoir details how they fell in love, but kept their relationship a secret by introducing Alexis to everyone as Joi's little sister. Shortly after they began their relationship, Joi Lansing was diagnosed with cancer, and Alexis became her caregiver during the final few years of her life. Joi died in 1972 at the age of 43. In this episode, I'll chat with Alexis about her writing journey, what it was like to revisit her past all these years later, and the very memorable first time she met Joi Lansing in person. Believe it or not, Alexis was wearing a monkey suit, as well as a few other things, coming up. Alexis Hunter, I want to thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm thrilled to be on your podcast. Thank you.
I thought what we could do today is start by talking about your new book, Joi Lansing, A Body to Die For, a love story. If you don't mind, tell us a bit about this book and what inspired you to write it.
It's a book about my relationship with Joi Lansing, who was one of the blonde bombshell sex symbols of the 50s and 60s. Joi and I were together from 1969 until her death in 1972. Joi was an amazing, amazing woman, and she was considered the Monroe of television. Her contemporaries were Marilyn Monroe, Mamie Van Doren, Jane Mansfield. But Joi did mostly, she did feature films, but she mostly did a lot of TV. And your listeners some of them will probably be surprised to realize at that time there were only 3 channels, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And so Joi was on all these stations, probably at least once a week. She did well over 100 TV shows. And so it's the story of our relationship, and it's a cautionary tale to warn people about body dysmorphia and, the problems with Hollywood. I mean, there's so much pressure on, especially women, to be young and beautiful. You can't age. And when I met her, she was 39. So it was a tough time for her, because she was a sex symbol, and there aren't a lot of, at that point, 40 years old was an older woman, and even though she was absolutely spectacularly beautiful, she was nervous about getting old. And so that's part of the reason for the story. And it's also so people will understand same-sex relationships a little bit better, that we're like everybody else. And so those are basically the reasons. And I want to stop bullying. And I've talked to I've talked to kids. In fact, my book was in the curriculum of a local high school, and for seniors, the baccalaureate kids, the smart kids, and they had to read my book and do a term paper. And so after they did that, the teacher would grade it. She'd send it to me. I'd read it and I'd answer them, and then I would go in and talk to the kids and do a Q&A. And I mean, it was probably one of the best things that's happened to me in my life. I mean, I loved it. I loved doing that, and I'd love to actually do more speaking and more conversations with kids, because if education is the most important thing. Someone said to me, "Educate, no hate." So just let people know who you are and what makes you tick. So basically, that's the reason I wrote the book.
Let's start at the beginning for people who haven't read the book and who may or may not know of Joi Lansing. Tell us how you met, because you begin the story really with the start of your relationship, and it was an unusual meeting.
No kidding. No kidding. Yeah. At that point, I just turned 21. And I was living at the Studio Club in Hollywood. At that time, Farrah Fawcett was living there, Sally Struthers, and a few other people that actually worked in the business. And I was, a young, what do you call it, ingenue, trying to break in to show business. And a friend of mine called me and said, "I can't stand to wear this monkey suit one more day. Do you want the job?" It was for a film. And I said, "Of course I do. I don't care about a monkey suit." And so she took me to meet the producer and director, and they were very nice. And I got the job. And there I am I had to be there like at 5 in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning on the set. And I'm in makeup and I'm in this monkey suit, fake fur. I mean, it was low budget. It was probably, I don't know if you saw the film, Stacy, but it's probably one of the worst films ever made. Uh, I mean, my God, it stinks. It is so terrible, so low budget. I mean, even in like a jungle scene, they had these fake plants, the fake trees and obviously fake. I mean, there was no, I mean, like some silk plants or whatever can look real. These didn't. So there I am in makeup, and they were putting like black, I don't know what you would call it, the paint, whatever, on my face and my hands, because those were exposed, and gluing on this fake fur and putting plastic fangs in my mouth. And I'm just sitting there. I didn't know who was in this film, right? And I'm just sitting there, and in walks Joi. And I thought I was going to die because when I was a kid, every day I'd rush home from school to watch her on Love That Bob or the Bob Cummings show, because I thought she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life. And there she was, and I just about fainted. And she sits right next to me. There was an open seat, right, and she had already done her makeup, but they were just going to, add a little bit to her. And she just started talking to me, and she was so sweet, just so nice, and just so unpretentious and lovely. And we just started chatting. And through the filming of this god awful thing, we became friends. And I would help her with her lines, and that's how everything started with her. And oh my God, it was true Beauty and the Beast. I was the beast, obviously.
One of the things I found interesting was you write in the book that you were introduced to people as Joi's little sister.
Right. Joi was straight. I mean, she dated Sinatra. When I met her, she was having an affair with Sid Caesar, who happened to look good at that time. And he had lost a lot of weight and whatever, but he was attractive. And the relationship just happened. It was just one of those wonderful things. And we just started getting to know each other, and we fell in love. we just fell in love. So it was an amazing thing. And so Joi wanted me to meet her friend, Joey Bishop, because they were friends and she had done his show many times. And she took me to his office and introduced me. And she sort of intimated that we were having a relationship, you know, and he was a hip guy. And so he said to me, he says, "You look like a Rachel." And I, huh? So suddenly my name was Rachel, and I became Joy's younger sister. So that way we could pull it off, being together all the time. So there would be no suspicion, because at that time it was illegal to have same-sex relationships in this country. It was really awful. First of all, it would have destroyed her career if people had found out. So we had to be on, as they say, on the down low. So I became Joy's baby sister, Rachel Lansing.
Joi was plagued towards the end of her life by a number of serious health issues. And
Yes.
you were her caregiver, really,
Yes.
through that.
Yeah. The first year we were together, she seemed fine. Everything was fine. And then when we were in New York, she was doing theater in the round on Long Island, and she started to have some pain. So we came back. Actually, she was about ready to sign a record deal because she was a wonderful singer, but that didn't happen because she started to have pain. So we came back to LA, and she ended up being diagnosed with terminal cancer, ovarian and breast cancer. So for the next almost 3 years, actually she did really well on chemo. And so we still had, a great life together, but I was basically her caregiver. Yeah. We were never separated. I was with her 24/7. So I was lucky. I was lucky to have that time with her.
And you were young when this happened.
So I was 21. I was 21, yeah. And I was not quite 25 when she died.
That's an incredibly difficult thing to go through at any age, but certainly when you're that young.
And I was so naive, Stacy. I was so green. I was a Navy brat and lived in Hawaii, Philippines. And then when my dad retired, he went back to his home, which was in Kansas, because his father was ill. And so I lived in Kansas for like 10 years. And so I was just really like off the farm, and then moved to LA going into my senior year of high school. And so I was really naive. I didn't know anything. I didn't drink. I didn't know anything about alcohol. I certainly didn't know about sleeping pills and drugs, because Joi was plagued with that. I mean, like a lot of stars, younger stars in the studio system, it was like, they work them so many hours, so they get him on speed, and then they'd have to give him sleeping pills to, so that they could sleep. It was like a serious drug culture. And Joi was really hooked on sleeping pills. And so, and I think I honestly feel that she had cancer well before I met her, because she would have these episodes, and I think it was hormonally related. She would have these episodes like every month, and she'd go into the deep depression and take a bunch of sleeping pills and wash it down with Johnny Walker. And I didn't know anything about that. I knew nothing. All I knew was, I learned to take care of her, and I learned how to keep her alive. So, I mean, it was tough. I mean, it was really tough as a kid. I didn't know anything, honestly, but I learned really fast, and it made me grow up, and it made me tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What has been the reaction from readers to the story?
Oh, I am so tremendously lucky, blessed, whatever you want to call it. People love the book. Straight people, gay people, in between people, because it's a love story. It's something that people can relate to, because everyone at some point in their lives deals with someone dying. And if they're lucky enough to have a great love, which I did, I had the greatest love of my life was with Joi. I had tremendous happiness and tremendous sorrow. But, people identify. I mean, straight people. I mean, and one of the great things is it creates an understanding. I've been contacted by men, straight men, who were estranged from their children because of the fact that their children were gay. And after reading my book, they understood. And now their relationships are solid again. And that thrills me. That absolutely thrills me, Stacey. I want the book to help people. I want it to teach people in a loving way that my relationship with Joi was no different than anyone else's. Basically, everybody goes through stuff. And Joi had more stuff than a lot of people, but I consider myself so fortunate in knowing her and having that relationship. I mean, it molded me. I mean, I was very young and it taught me what is important. I know what's important in life, at least for me. Loving and letting people know, the people you love know that you love them. I never go one day without letting my friends know how much I care about them, because you never know when you're going to lose someone, you know.
What made you decide to write this memoir now?
Well, the funny thing is, it wasn't funny actually. I had some health issues because I had a crappy insurance, and my hips were terribly arthritic. And my insurance company kept saying, there's nothing wrong with you, trying to avoid paying for surgery. And so I ended up bedridden and in a wheelchair for almost 4 years. And during that time, when you're at home and bored and not feeling great, at least I got on the phone and I contacted everybody I knew, or past, during my past or whatever, just to kill the monotony. So I reached out to Joi's stepdaughter, whom I hadn't seen since Joi died. And her name is Leslie. And Leslie was a super, super person. And she was living in the Palm Springs area. And she was a nurse practitioner and had owned a pharmacy with her husband. And we became, we really started up a friendship. And every day she would call me and see how I'm doing. And she'd finally say, well, why don't you write a book? And I said, what? Well, why don't you write a book? And she kept nagging me. And I mean, it was just every day. And I said to her, well, what should I write a book about? And she said, well, about Joi. And I thought, oh crap, what am I going to, how am I going to get out of this one? Because I didn't know what she knew or whatever. And she kept saying the same thing almost every day. You got to write a book about Joi. And then finally I said, Leslie, did you understand my relationship with Joi? She said, yes. Joi told me you guys were lovers. And I go, oh my God, I had no idea. It floored me, Stacey. I had no idea at all that she was aware. So she said, write about your relationship with Joi. I mean, that would be good. And so I did. That's how that totally started. I had no intention of ever writing a book. But it gave me purpose, and I wrote the book, and it was first published in 2015. And just recently, in the last few weeks, it's been the new edition, which has a lot more photos of Joi that nobody's ever seen, and photos of Joi and me together, which I mean, they're wonderful, wonderful photos. So that's in the book. And people ask me what happened to me after Joi died. So I added another chapter. So the new edition is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and, any bookseller. That is out now. So I'm excited, absolutely excited.
What did happen after you lost Joi? Did you continue acting? Did you stay in Hollywood? Where did life lead you?
Well, after Joi died, my parents picked me up because I couldn't go back to our home. I could not, it would be too hard, too depressing. So my parents picked me up and took me to their home outside of LA. And I stayed there for probably about 2 or 3 months. And I was lost. I was totally lost. I was still friendly with Joy's husband. They were legally separated. They were married in 1960 and legally separated in 65, but he remained a very important part of her life. In fact, he lived with us after she was diagnosed, and he helped, in a lot of ways. He helped financially. And luckily, Joi was able, because they were still legally married, able to get on his health insurance. So that was, really, really, really helpful. And he was a good guy. He was a little, like I say, he was a great friend. He was a great friend to me, but a terrible husband. He was just not a good husband to Joi. But toward the end, him being there was helpful in many ways. And after that, he decided to open up a restaurant in Hawaii and had me go there as the manager. So I did that for a few years and then moved back into LA and ended up tending bar at a woman's bar in LA. And that was an exciting experience. And I had a great time. And then I tended bar and managed bars. And then I've had so many different careers because I love change. I've been a chauffeur. I've been a massage therapist. I've been a realtor, painter. I'm an artist. I make jewelry, chauffeur, personal assistant, all sorts of really cool things. So so far I've had a great life. I have no complaints at all, Stacy.
I was curious what it was like for you to go back and relive those memories, not just of your relationship with Joi and all the wonderful things and the terrible things, but also relive Hollywood at that time, relive being a young woman with big dreams in Hollywood. What was that like?
At times it was tough, but at times it was also very cathartic because prior to writing the book, I think you probably can understand this. I didn't want to lose 1 minute of the time that I had with Joi. So I had these tapes running through my head. Anytime I'd have quiet time or whatever, I would relive those times with Joi, just sort of plug into those memories. And by writing the book, I didn't have to worry about losing them. It was on paper or whatever you want to call it. It was there forever. So I didn't have to have those tapes in my head, and I could go on with my life.
Yeah.
I could go into a second chapter of my life.
Did you end up having to do any research for the book? Did you remember it all clearly, all the
I did. And
details?
I remembered everything, practically chapter and verse. And I also had a journal. So I could sort of check that out, because when I was with her, I would just like scribble little things in the journal, and that helped prompt the memories. So I really didn't have to do any research. It was my life. It was my experience.
And what's next for you? Do you have plans to do any more writing?
I may write another book. I kind of started one, but the main thing that I'm doing now, my new exciting career is I design jewelry, and it's starting to take off. I'm so excited, Stacy. People are loving my jewelry. So that's what I'm doing. It's very creative. I also paint. I haven't done much painting lately, but I used to show in various galleries, and I did well with that. But I love making jewelry. But I also, you know, I may start another book because I have some pretty good stories, especially when I was a chauffeur. I got to tell you, I drove all the celebrities and politicians, so I have some really good ones. So that would be fun. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
any plans to turn the book into, say, a screenplay or something like
Oh,
that?
yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. In fact, right now I'm working with a really great guy, a producer. His name is Vincent DeSalvo. And we're working on a limited series for one of the streaming services like Hulu or Netflix. And we have a great screenwriter, Joe Doherty, who did, I don't know if you ever saw 30 something or Pretty Liars. He's a A-list screenwriter. So he's working on that. And just keep a good thought on that one, because that would be fabulous. That's what I'm hoping for.
Joi would be back on our TV screens.
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent. Well, if people want to purchase a copy of your book, Joi Lansing A Body to Die For, where can they go to buy it?
They can find it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble or any bookseller. All you have to do is, call your bookseller, go in and just, they'll order it for you. Yeah, that would be great. I would love it if people would read my book. And it's not all, I want to let people know that it's not a depressing book. Yeah, there are sad parts, but we had some great experiences. Our trip in Vegas and Elvis and just all the celebrities. I mean, this was when Hollywood still was rocking and cool, when Elvis was gorgeous. I actually met him and he kissed me. So, that's all in the book. And there's some really cool things. A lot of, if anybody's into old Hollywood and celebrities, they would like that part. Because we had some great adventures.
Well, if people,
boy, did we.
if people want to find you, keep up to date, where can they go to find you?
I'm on Facebook. Long story, my Alexis Hunter page was hacked, so I had to come up with a new name. So if anybody had read my book, I figured they could figure out it was me. So it's under my name on Facebook is Rachel Lansing. So that's that. And I'm on Instagram as Ms. Alex Hunter, MS Alex Hunter. And I don't do much Twitter. I may start doing that, but Facebook's a great place to find me, and Instagram. And there's tons of pictures of Joi and pictures of my jewelry, and people can contact me. I love talking to people, and people who are reading or read my book. I love talking to them about it. So, if they have questions, because some people just wonder, well, what happened here? What happened there? Or they didn't quite understand. And so I'm not one of those people that hides from their readers. I'm out there with them, because they're giving me a gift by reading the book. And my main purpose is keeping Joi's memory alive. I want people to know her and love the person that I loved. She needs to be remembered.
Well, I think you do a good job of that in the book. So hopefully people will find it and read it and contact you.
Well, thanks so much, Stacy.
Sure. And congratulations on the book. And we wish you luck with that. We'll keep our fingers crossed for a series. And best of luck with the rest of this journey.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Thank you.
The Bookshop at the End of the Internet is a podcast dedicated to helping book lovers discover new authors. Like any good bookshop, this podcast features a wide variety of books by the equally varied and interesting authors who felt compelled to write them. This podcast gives you a chance to meet these wonderful writers and discover your next must-read book. Listen to the authors describe their books and tell you their stories in their own words. My interviews feature books from all genres and authors from all walks of life, including those who are indie published, as well as those published by small presses and large publishing houses. Looking for unique, not so easy to find books for yourself, a friend, or a book club? Tune into this podcast and find your newest favorite author, or maybe a soon-to-be bestseller. This podcast, like all the best bookshops, is filled with all kinds of books and all kinds of authors. Tune in, browse around, find a new author, and discover a new favorite book. You never know what treasures you might find in the Bookshop at the End of the Internet.